Welcome, welcome, welcome to The Guilty Feminist. Nicky Clark, Juliet Stevenson and Meera Syal.
Hello.
Woohoo.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
It's an honour and a privilege to have you all here today. Nicky, you started this campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I started it in 2018 for two reasons, really. One was because I tried to restart my acting career at 50 and found that was quite tricky. And the other reason was that I just wasn't seeing any women who looked like me leading on TV. I saw an awful lot of men my age, and I saw an awful lot of their on-screen partners who were about 20 years younger. But I didn't see my life on screen. I didn't see women going through my experiences on screen. And it was one of those awful things that when you start to notice, you see it everywhere. And so I started looking into the data. I did a deep dive into the Academy Awards for the last 20 years and BAFTA for the last 20 years. And the more that the data was building up and the more that the problem seemed to be something that wasn't just something I was noticing, but the conversations I was having with actresses like Juliet and other supporters at the beginning of the campaign, I found that this was definitely a problem that actresses identified with, presenters identified with, and writers. Because one of the questions that came up initially was, well, we need more writers. And writers were contacting me and saying, we submit scripts and it gets all the way through to commissioning. And when we get to commissioning, the response is always, well, this couple in their 50s, we love him. He's amazing. However, can you make her 20 years younger? And it just became something.
Would they actually say
Yeah.
that? I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So blatant.
Totally blatant.
I think it sometimes happens at the casting as well. Because friends of mine who were like, I know people who are in their 30s and they will get scripts for like, she's 48. And they'll be like, excuse me, I'm 37. It's like, yeah. But you've got you could play this part. And a friend of mine recently said, absolutely not. She said, like, I'll play this part, but this part is then going to be a 33-year-old woman. I'm not playing 40. Our women's careers are so truncated as it is because of this kind of thing. The last thing you can afford to do is claim to be 40 on screen, because then that, it's if you're 33, because of these very strange patriarchal forces. Meera Syal, can you tell us a little bit about your experience of age and your work on screen and stage?
Well, I've generally always played a bit older than I am, because I guess I'm classed as a character actress, which used to mean not pretty enough to be a romantic lead, but actually is the much better career course, because you just get the most interesting parts. So I was playing a granny when I was in my late 30s, but it was a great part, so I really didn't mind. And all my favourite actresses are without vanity. So I think it's really important to say this issue isn't about vanity at all. It's about the inequity of how we're seen as ageing women. And a really strange thing started to happen in my 40s, late 40s, early 50s, when suddenly I would meet actors on things, male actors, and a few years ago I'd been playing their wives, and now I was playing their mothers. And I thought, it's like dog years. What is actresses' years different? What happened? I thought we were all aging at the same rate. So there's this unspoken thing that I am a mother of a teenage child, and I'm 60, but no one would ever cast me as the mother of a teenage child in real life, although there are plenty of women like me. And so this kind of weird, different set of rules for ageing women, that somehow, if you're not seen as viable or attractive anymore, childbearing age, or, attractive enough to want to sleep with, you're suddenly relegated to, well, you'll do as, aging mum and then grandma. And the other thing that really struck me, and this is just a by the by, but for someone that doesn't like getting up in the morning, actresses' makeup calls are 3 times as long as male makeup calls, because there is this underlying assumption that you have to work so much harder to make a woman look acceptable, i.e. not old on screen, whereas men literally waltz in, blow their nose, comb their hair, and they bloody go out again. I mean, their makeup calls are ridiculous. So that really struck me. I thought there's an inherent sexism somewhere in how we're seen on screen, and it's reflected in the makeup calls.
That's so interesting. And it's ancient, this as well, isn't it? I also remember the story that Cary Grant's mother in North by Northwest was younger than him. So that, I mean, unbelievable. And Sally Fields played Tom Hanks's wife, and then, you know, got a bit older, and suddenly she's his mum in Forrest Gump. It's outrageous. Juliet Stevenson, could you tell us a little bit about your experience with this?
Oh God, I mean, totally mirroring what Meera said. I love the idea of dog years. It's hilarious. I mean, I just feel, I'm trying to be, to summarize it, I kind of feel I'm on this train, you know, my life. I'm on a train that's going to planet interesting, to planet, you know, ever more exciting and lively and interesting. And I pass a train going the other way, which is my part going to planet boring. I mean, my experience of getting older is that, you know, I achieved a kind of confidence I never had when I was younger. I know so much more. I've had so much life experience. I've brought up kids. I've had lots and lots of huge things I've dealt with. I have much more confidence to look at things from the funny side. I just feel like full of energy to tell stories about, on behalf of women in this part of their lives. And the roles I get increasingly are, you know, coming on with a tray, wearing a pinny, or making sure that those chaps are running the world in the way it should be run, you know, or mopping up the mess they're making. I mean, it's just the parts are so two-dimensional and boring. But I am not on this campaign to talk about my own experience, really. I'm much more, because I think that as things go, I am lucky. I sort of question the word lucky in a way, because I think, is it lucky to be working? Well, it is lucky to be working, but I think everybody is entitled to be working. But I think I'm very, very much speaking for brilliant actresses who I know over 45 who don't work. And that's a tragedy, because they're wonderful and they have so much to offer, and they don't get a look in. And I'm also on this campaign on behalf of audiences. The narratives of both Meera and Nicky have said, you know, the narratives of women in the audiences. I mean, Nicky said she never saw her own experience reflected on screen when watching telly or movies. And it's true. 50% or over are women will watch television and cinema and so on, are women over the age of 45. And yet they don't see their narratives there. Or if they do, they're extremely restricted, limited version of those narratives. So we, you know, our job is to tell stories back to the world about itself. And we're not able to do that on the whole, other than tell very, very often a very male gaze version of those narratives. And finally, and then I'll shut up, it's that I wrote about this once, and I wrote in this book, 50 Shades of Feminism. And I realized that I think what happens is that genuinely people producing, directing, or commissioning, or whatever, stuff for telly or theatre or film, don't consider that women over 45 have a narrative. Their life is over. They've had their sex, they've had their kids, they've fallen in love, they've got their careers, they've had their exciting difficulties, or they've been in exciting forms of jeopardy. And then their narratives have literally stopped, and they are just there to support the offspring they've produced, or the husband they've still got. You know, mainly that is the idea, that narratives have literally stopped happening to them, which is, of course, absurd and ludicrous.
Yes, that really resonates with me. And I also worry about boys and men seeing that. I worry about girls and young women seeing it, and I worry about boys and men seeing it, because the stories we tell us who are the important human beings in life. And I've heard again and again from women, oh, when I turned 40, I started to feel invisible in life, in the street, in the supermarket, in a bar. And I think this kind of stories we tell and whose eyes we look through tell us who's visible.
Yeah.
And so it's just as concerning for me that men and boys don't see women over a certain age reflected, or girls reflected very much at all. We don't look through the eyes of girls. We don't look through the eyes of women very much. But when we do, they are always young and beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for our society, because it shapes who we believe should have priority, who is individual, who's human, who's important, and more than that, who's capable of leading. And listen, if posh white men were doing an incredible job at running the world, I'd be like, do we want to rock the boat? But I look at the environment, and I look at foreign policy, and I look at the financial system, and I think, do you know, I rather wonder if someone else shouldn't have a little go. And I am waiting, actually, for the big crisis of confidence that's going to come from posh white men over 40 who run every fucking thing. When are they going to turn around and go, guys, I don't think we're doing, it's not going well. When, I ask you. What would you like to see change, Nicky? What are you hoping this campaign will do?
I think ideally it's just to understand that the oft-spoken about 50-50 gender parity does exist in the UK throughout the whole of media, as long as you're happy that the 50-50 they're talking about is young women and middle-aged men. Because in all of the work that I've done, all of the research of this is what I've found. Last year at the BAFTA TV Awards, there were no leading actresses over the age of 38 at all. In a very diverse category, they were all young women. So again, I did a deep dive and I looked back and I found that the average age of leading TV nominees at BAFTA has fallen in the last 21 years from age 52 to age 32. And
is that the average
That's
age?
the average age of the nominees. Now, for the men, it's fallen in the men's category as well, but it's fallen from age 48 to 45, which of course means they're still very comfortably within their playing age range. You know, a dad of 48, a dad of 45, an assassin of 48, an assassin of 45. And that's the other problem. Women are appearing over the age of 45, over the age of 50 and 60, but they are horrendous representations of women. Again, they're not women I recognise. They're all humorless. They are all bigoted. They are all vile. They are all deeply unpleasant. They're all out to wreck their daughters' lives or their husbands' lives or their second wives. I mean, it's the representation.
And they certainly never have sex.
Never have sex. And if they do have sex, they're cougars. But I think across wider media, we need to look at this. We need to look on our tabloid culture, that the front page of a tabloid still, as recently as a year ago, was talking about a cougar and her toy boy because she happened to be 20 years older than the guy she was dating. This never happens with men. The prominence of young women on the fronts of our tabloids compared to perhaps a tiny little picture of an older woman. So it's the quantity and it's the quality and it's the fact that it's telling young women and young men that older women don't matter. When you look at the latest iteration of the Spider-Man film, it's got 15 leading characters. 2 of them are women, one of whom, sorry, no spoilers, I know, but one of whom, the only middle-aged woman in it, dies about an hour into the film. There are 13, I think, men in total. So you have a young woman who goes throughout the show. But all the young audiences to that film are seeing the rest of the men. There's 8 men over the age of 50, 4 of whom are over the age of 60. And the rest there's one guy in his 30s. And again, that just keeps saying to young audiences, older women don't matter. Older women don't feature in our stories.
So there are 2 women in it.
Yeah.
Where really they could have had one. There was no need for the second one. So in a way, it's useful. We're doubling
just
up
keep
there.
the young one.
But the older one dies halfway through. So that makes it tidier for the second half. Meera, how do you feel about this?
Well, interestingly, I can certainly tell you from a writer's point of view, because I also, write or try and get things on television, is that the brief I have been given very clearly from, I would say at least 3 or 4 of the major broadcasters, is that we, make everyone younger in your casts. Everyone.
Really?
So project, because what they're terrified of is losing the youth vote. Terrified. They're not really interested in the people that are going to die in the next 10 or 15 years. But because young people are deserting television, traditional television in their droves, everything is about the young. So there was an idea I was working on in which, it's all female and all of the women in it were in their 50s. And they have said, we want you to make the 3 main characters teens between 16 and 20.
Teens?
Yes.
But how is that the
20.
same story or the same experience? But that's also assuming teens would never want to watch something with grown-ups in, and that just isn't true. You make good shows, families watch them together the same way the parents will watch Stranger Things with the kids. Juliet,
I just want to ask Meera, when you're dealing with these people, these commissioning editors or producers or whatever, when you're as a writer, I mean, what gender are they? Are they mainly men or?
No, they're mainly women, the ones I'm working with at the moment. And it's all very apologetic. And, you know, the fact that everything I'm writing at the moment is mostly female, really, 95% female cast is enough boxes ticked. But they sort of shrug their shoulders apologetically and say that is the edict from on high.
Exactly. So I think, and on high is the men. I mean, I'm really interested in that answer, not because I expected you to say men, because I thought expected you to say many of them are women. And I think there's a massive problem. And I think this is something that we really need to look at, however difficult, is that women who do get into positions of power as producers or commissioning editors just drop this subject. It is not being fought for. It's not being argued. It's not like, I hate the word argue, because it's not like we're asking for favors. It's like the world is missing so many amazing, sexy, interesting, exciting narratives. It's missing out on so much content by just shutting down this stuff. It's so bad.
But I can't even have this conversation in wider media. They just won't feature this campaign. I mean, the campaign that runs alongside this campaign is to get this issue discussed on Woman's Hour, because, no offence to Woman's Hour, but, you know, if you're a flagship current affairs show or discussion show for women's issues, and you're not talking about 12 million unrepresented women in the UK, in UK media, whether that's TV, whether that's presenting, whether that's on stage or anything else, I find it baffling. But there's a real resistance to discuss this, because I think, just as Meera says, there's this perception that young people won't be interested in older women, which is ridiculous, because there's a lot of younger supporters of this campaign, because young people are fierce. They just don't do discrimination in the way that our generation tends to do.
Maybe that's what this campaign needs. It needs young women and teenagers to get the Gen Zs out to say, hold on, why am I not seeing my mum, my grandmother on screen? They're amazing people. And also, I'm going to be that. It's a bit like disability, the disability campaigners often say, you're not disabled yet. But as people age, they lose mobility, for example. And that's, you know, and anyone can at any point become disabled for any number of reasons. Similarly, you're only going to age or die. They're your options. So excluding older people makes no sense, because it's a category you very much hope to be in.
You know, where do these edicts come from is a very good point that Juliet made. But I honestly find a huge disconnect between what the people that make the programmes think audiences want and what audiences actually watch. I mean, Joe Scanlon just won the BAFTA, which was fantastic and much deserved. One of the top shows last year was Mayor of Easttown, featuring Kate Winslet, looking very unglamorous and very much in her late 40s, early 50s. You know, an unglamorous middle-aged woman at the centre of a story. And one of the main reasons people really connected with that is they went, there's somebody we can relate to. That does look like my mum or me.
And how big was Happy Valley as well?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's these things, when they come on, people are thirsty for them.
Meera is so right about that. She is so right about people who generate this programming not getting it right about what people want. And time and time and time again, as people who work inside this industry, we find, you know when you pick up a script and you say yes to a job, that it's a formula. You're in another formula of yet another television series that's doing more or less what other series have done before you. And of course you do it because you need to earn a living, and you're, how lovely to be asked. Thank you very much. The fact is, those things come and go. But very often the things that occasionally you do that are really successful are always successful because they're breaking the mold.
Exactly.
They're always successful because they've been driven by passion project.
What are the tropes you hate playing as an older woman, or seeing played as older women? Or
I only ever play. Basically, I play mothers, just like Meera. I've been playing mothers for a long time. Like Meera, I was never considered very pretty, which is absolutely fine. I'm quite realistic.
You're both gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Just to be absolutely fucking clear.
But in feeling invisible, when people talk about that, I thought, I think I always did feel invisible, to be honest, because in a world that objectifies women. I never did walk along the street and get bombarded with wolf whistles, so I don't particularly notice that. But I think that, but I do think
I constantly can't stop.
Now I just play, on the whole, I play mothers, and they're pretty much always bad mothers, because if you think about it, a good mother does not make drama. That's a cliche that drama has to be about conflict. And therefore, if you've got a young hero or even a middle-aged hero, and he has a mother, that mother has got to be in somehow oppositional or destructive, or so if that's a mother whose son is gay and who's completely rejected him or destroyed him, or if it's a mother, it's very often the bad mother. And so what I just try to do, because it really hurts me, I don't mind playing people who are terrible. It's quite fun. But I have to be able to tell a story about why they're behaving like that. You have to. I'm not interested in putting out images of women who are just ghastly people for no reason. You have to ask the question, if this woman has to behave this badly, then why is she doing it? And that's the space that you almost never get. So all they want is the cliche of the bad mother. They do not want you to expand it into what are the pressures on this woman, on these women. Why does she become like that?
Meera, do you get to play a lot of bad mothers?
Oh, well, when it comes to Indian mothers, that's it. That's an even smaller palette. There's either, hi, I'm an Indian mother, but I'm really liberal. I don't mind my son's views. Or it's the usual, you get out and never darken my door again. There doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem to be much in between.
So it's either arranging an unwanted marriage or I love lesbians.
Exactly.
Surprisingly, despite being Asian, look at me. Look at me making a cup of tea for a lesbian willingly, or casting children out into the street because they won't agree to an arranged marriage and to be completely controlled by you for the rest of their lives.
So mum A or mum B, generally,
And do you prefer generally evil or bland? Which if you have to do one or the other.
It's always more fun to play evil, but then again, I really like making tea for lesbians. So you've asked me a very different question now.
Listen, it's everything to play for and everything to win. It's win-win for you there, Meera. Nicky, we'd love to do a guilty feminist show with you, Meera, Juliet, and some other actresses who are over 45, where we do some monologues and also have a broader discussion about this and maybe have some fun. Maybe I might write some sketches. We could do some sort of sketches of the stereotypes. That would be good fun.
That'd be great.
There's a whole...
And we'll do
that would be
so
funny.
Yeah, we'll do it at King's Place.
Let's not do existing monologues. Let's write the material, because honestly, this group of people alone, we could have such a ball.
Okay, why don't we do that? So listeners at home, if you would come along to see some of your favourite actresses, either in person, or we might beam some of them in onto the big screen at King's Place. And if you'd love to see that, please tweet about it. Could you please just tell us the details of the campaign, Nicky?
Yes.
So that everyone knows who to hashtag.
Definitely. So it's Acting Your Age campaign. There is another Act Your Age, I think, that the Girl Guides did, because I got really excited when I saw it was trending online. And I was thinking, finally, they know we're here. And then it was them. Which was great. So well done. But Acting Your Age campaign, and you go to mrsnickiclark.com, which, can I just say, that's not just me promoting the fact that I'm married. It was actually because with any campaigning, you get loads and loads of abuse. So I was described as scary shite house. So, Mary Whitehouse. So I just went for it with my Twitter name. So it's mrsnickiclark.com, and you can find the Acting Your Age campaign page there. You'll find the panels that we did with amazing women, the campaign film I did for International Women's Day, and the list of supporters and just the reasons for the campaign, because it's very hard as women when you want to talk about this, because the perception is that you're just complaining when actually you're campaigning. But so that's the whole point, really.
Okay, so on Twitter, you want to say at Mrs. Nicky Clark and at GuiltFemPod, at Deborah FW. If you'd like us to do the show, or you would like to share details about Acting Your Age, and then you just hashtag Acting Your Age and say, yes, you'd be interested in this campaign. And you feel free to copy in, Channel 4, the BBC, anyone like that you think should see that you would watch things with women over 45 in them, or even, perhaps you are a woman over 40, or perhaps know a woman over 40. If any of those apply to you, if you've met a woman over 40, or you can see one looking out your window now, you could tell Channel 4 or BBC that, or any of the major streamers, networks, Netflix, anything like that. I'm sure they'd love to hear about it. And if you'd love us to do a live event and you'd be up for coming along to that, do let us know. Meera.
No, I was just maybe I'm naive, but I am shocked that you would be getting any abuse, Nicky, for campaigning on what is, for me, such a non-controversial issue, really. Who? Why?
Well, it falls into two camps. Because I made it very specifically about middle-aged women, because there's this huge problem. Young, everybody loves. Old, everybody thinks is adorable. It's this bit in the middle that we are pretty much loathed for. So I would sort of talk about what I was doing, and I would immediately be told, well, there's no need for your campaign because, hello, Judi Dench. And I was like, no, but she's 80. I love Judi Dench. Everyone loves Judi Dench. But how many 160-year-old women do you know? So there's that. There's also the list of programmes that they will
If you're listening, Dame Judy, we know you're not over 100.
No, you're not.
But
you're just gorgeously
a regular
vital.
listener.
But they will send
Maggie Smith
all
as
the
well.
programmes.
We've got to. There's no need for
that
more.
sort of justify. And a lot of these programmes are from the 1980s. They'll say there is no need for your campaign because women exist. And it's like, yeah, I know, but just not on UK screens. So, yeah.
As soon as anybody, this argument is often used. And I always say, as soon as you're saying individual names of women to me, but as soon as you say Meryl Streep to me, I'll say, you would never, ever, would you, begin to list the men who are managing careers over the age of 40, 45. You just wouldn't say, well, what about George Clooney or Denzel Washington? I mean, as soon as you start saying Meryl Streep, Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, you think, well, yeah, absolutely. Because there are a very small number who are allowed, it's like a bath. There's a plug hole at the end with a sieve. And when you're young, that bath is full of, but a few get through the plug hole. Plug hole is not, it's not a great metaphor, but a few get through the grid. If you get through and get to the other side, fine. But there's single numbers.
And I did a survey.
And vast numbers don't get through that sieve.
I did a survey for audiences, and I said, how many women over the age of 45 on screen can you name? And only 9% of those surveyed could name more than 20 women, and 49% could name more than 20 men. And it's just that we've accepted it. We're just bombarded with it all of the time. As I say, on screen, men have a whole life and women just a shelf life. And that does have to change because it's 2022.
Could I ask Nicky, just before we go, when you said we have 50-50 parity, but only if you count young women and older men, is that true? Because I feel we see many fewer women on screen per se. Like, if you watch the average screen, definitely in the theatre, I mean, they keep on putting Shakespeare plays on in most theatres most of the time. And there's a cast of 400 men and then, 2 women. Can we possibly have parity, or is it just that it's a better balance if you take into account younger women and older
So
men?
what Ofcom did was, as part of their diversity monitoring, they produced figures, and they did, I think it was the Cumberbatch Research Group, no link to the actor, but the Cumberbatch Research Group monitored.
Because it sounds suspicious if it was the Cumberbatch Research Group that came up with these figures, I'll be honest.
So they did a deep dive into television and across all of the channels over a fixed period of time. And what they found was that up to the age of 45, representation on UK screens is pretty balanced now. Of course, it wasn't, but there's been a lot of work done there. Over the age of 45, however, that falls very, very rapidly. So it declines exponentially. And then when you get into over 50, over 60, over 70, it's terrible. So you have roughly 3 times as many middle-aged men appearing on UK screens than you do women. And across the amount of time and the quality of role and the screen time that they occupy, again, this is far more diminished to men. They're not playing the same quality of role. They're not leading. They're not achieving. They're not virile.
So he's playing the detective who's well-rounded. We know why he's like he is. he's a hero, but also he's flawed. He gets lots of scenes on his own where he just gets to stare out a window and we feel sorry for him. And she nags him not to leave the house because there's a plot outside and she doesn't want the family getting involved in any stories. And he says, oh, I've just got to go and have one more story and then I promise we'll move up to the Highlands and we'll never have a story again. And then he does. And unfortunately, that story, she was right. He shouldn't have gone outside because now he's got into trouble with some gangsters. So in the meantime, she's making tea, bothering people, nagging people.
Ruining her daughter's life.
Ruining her daughter's life if she'd got time for that. They probably, depends if there's time for her to ruin her daughter's life, sitting on the kitchen floor weeping, if she's lucky.
Don't forget making tea for lesbians.
Yes.
Making tea for lesbians, of course.
Yes.
If you're, it's a fun role. She's a comedy.
Yeah.
She's in a comedy. Juliet, before we go, did you have a list, did you say, of male sex symbols that you wrote down?
I did, I couldn't resist. Okay. George Clooney is 60, Daniel Craig is 54, Brad Pitt is 58, Johnny Depp is 58, Tom Cruise is 59, Matt Damon's 51, Mark Wahlberg's 50, Idris Elba's 49, Ralph Fiennes is 59, Denzel Washington's 67, Samuel L. Jackson's 73, Benedict Cumberbatch 45.
Wow.
So, that just amused me. Because I thought none of those guys have careers in which they're playing fathers.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Or if they
None
are
of
a
them are wearing
father,
a
it's not
penny.
the main thing about them.
Of a toddler. There'll be a
Correct.
father of a toddler as well.
Correct.
Let's face it.
Yeah, a tragic toddler or a cute toddler. But and wouldn't it be great? Aren't they amazing? Because they can also pick up a child and change its nappy, or cook it, a piece of toast. But I know. I just thought it would be so hilarious, wouldn't it? If Benedict Cumberbatch, they sort of turned around and said, "Ben, listen, it's great. You've been great, Benedict, but you are a bit wrinkly now. So could you possibly just step aside, mate? And here's a penny, and can we have you coming on once or twice in the next hour with a tray?" And that would be lovely. Thank you.
Maybe you could be telling a woman, "Don't go, you'll get into danger," and then be upset when the woman leaves the house and something happens to her.
Yeah. No, Benedict, we do understand that your talent has not gone the way of your skin, but nevertheless, sorry. It upsets me, honestly, that I feel like in my life that why does confidence arrive just as collagen is leaving the building? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's so annoying to me.
But that's the irony, though, of this whole thing is that, just when you are absolutely in your prime as a woman, when everything you know and you feel comes together and you love who you are and you love your body and you can just, you're in your wise woman phase. You are absolutely there with yourself. And, it's just a wonderful sort of period. It's never seen as that way. Just as we're coming to that beautiful peak is when the world loses interest. And that is such a tragedy because, my goodness,
I totally agree. But you know what you're saying, Meera? Meera, what you're saying is just at the time when you think I am who I am, regardless of what the male gaze says I am. I mean, it takes you that long to say, I don't care. This is who I actually am. And that's the moment at which you cease to be interested. And I don't think that's a coincidence. No.
One of my very favourite Fleabag scenes is when Fleabag's talking to Kristen Scott Thomas's character. And she starts talking about the menopause. And she says, it's just... oh, magnificent. I'm not a factory anymore. It's just you're just released from all of that. And you're not expected to be this sort of constant, sexy, flirting thing. And your body's not a factory. It's all wonderful. And you don't see many representations on screen of older women talking about the good things or it's just usually menopause is, if it's depicted at all, which it hardly ever is, as something tragic and dreadful. That means that you are no longer desirable to the male gaze, as if that's a tragedy, when really often it's a relief. I feel I'm coming into my phase where I could probably cure people's ailments by finding flowers in a wood. I'm loving it. And I'm not even that old, gang. I just feel like the more confidence comes on. The only thing is I feel like I'm just losing my jawline a touch. It's just a touch. And if that could be, maybe I'll find some herbs in the wood and fix it.
Darling,
listen,
I love you to bits, but I would never eat any flower from any wood that you picked for me.
I mean, listen, you might be missing out on the elixir of youth, my friend. which I know is the key to all of our careers. Listen, it's been absolutely great to do this. What fun we'll have if we do a live show. So let's try and make that happen. In the meantime, can I say a huge thank you to Juliet Stevenson? Woo! Meera Syal. Yeah! Woo! Nicky Clark.
Way!
Hashtag acting your age. It's been wonderful to have you all on The Guilty Feminist. Love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Thank you.